Hey folks, Jack here from Peach Guitars, and this is that Les Paul sound. Alright, hey folks, Jack here. So, as I said in the introduction there, this is going to be all about that Les Paul sound, and I want to use this video as a way to break down what that means, because it is a term that a lot of people use and I don't think everyone means the same thing by it. And I also want to use this video as a way of giving you 3 examples of what I consider to be variants of that Les Paul sound. To represent that, I've got this 60th anniversary 1959 reissue Les Paul from Gibson's Custom Shop. This is basically the best Les Paul reproduction that I've ever played. I think a lot of people who've played these guitars will attest to that. They've just absolutely hit the nail on the head in terms of replicating what made those old Les Paul bursts so magical and so highly revered. To me, at least, that Les Paul sound is bright, crisp, and really, really clear. And what Gibson have done with this most recent iteration of the historic Les Paul is they've nailed that. It's a lot brighter now than it ever was. It kind of sounds like it's a Telecaster on steroids, a little bit fatter. It's got that bite and it's got that sizzle to it. But it also means that, you know, moving away from the famous bridge pickup, the neck pickup sound also has to be very clear. And it has to have a certain warmth behind it at the same time. And whatever that magical balance of frequencies is, I personally feel that Gibson have completely encapsulated it in these historic models. Using the in-between position as well is kind of telling, I think, with getting that Les Paul sound, because just by varying the volume controls you have a myriad of different tones at your disposal. And this guitar again serves as a perfect vehicle for that. There may be instances, and you may be the kind of player, where that isn't what you want, and you want to take some of what makes this guitar so wonderful and just move it in a slightly different direction, and that is where you get very, very strong competition from some boutique brands. So in the running today, we've got this Gibson Les Paul. I've also got, from our friends Patrick James Eggle, his Macon model, and we've got the magnificent Nick Huber Orca 59 as well. But I do legitimately think that what these 2 builders have managed to do is impart something very different to this formula to make it a little bit different to what Gibson do. Alright, so I've covered a lot of what I personally kind of attribute to being the Les Paul sound. And I do think that this guitar is a very, very good example of it. Like I said, it's bright and clear, but it's also raunchy enough to give you that kind of classic rock sensibility that these guitars are best known for. So what you're going to hear in the clips that I've done a distorted and a clean kind of clip of each guitar. I wanted to kind of get across not only the melodic sensibility that all these guitars have, they're all capable of providing a really warm vocal type tone, but also I wanted to lay into them a little bit and provide a bit more of that raunchy rhythmic thing, which in my personal opinion, this guitar has never been bettered for that. This 60th anniversary Les Paul just absolutely has that sound down. It's not what everyone wants to do with it, but if you want that Jimmy Page-esque, bright but clear and kind of warm, just mix, the perfect mix, that's where this guitar really makes its money, if you like. This is where it cashes in on that classic rock thing, but it's capable of a lot more as well, and I'm going to let you be the judge of what you think of the clean and the distorted tones. Alright, so I've covered there what I personally feel to be that Les Paul sound, and hopefully that's fresh in your minds for now when I'm going to talk about guitar number 2, which comes from the UK. This is Patrick James Eggle. This is the Macon. So again, we've covered this guitar in a couple of other videos in the past. Not this specific one necessarily, but Patrick makes an excellent variety of models under the Macon kind of family. He likes to experiment with different woods, different pickup configurations, stuff like this. So while the spec is actually quite similar to a Gibson on this particular guitar, I think this has something different to it. So what I hear with this guitar when I play it is it's darker, and that's what I really like about Eggle's guitars. They're always a little bit meaner sounding. It still has a lot of that woodiness, probably even more so in this guitar in fact. And when you play the single notes on this, there's a little bit of a spring to it as well. It's something that the Les Paul has, but this does it in a different way. So I personally really like the way this sounds, particularly overdriven. It's got that nice driving quality, but with the clean sound as well, you have the added benefit of individual coil splits for each pickup on the 2 respective tone controls. So that affords you just a whole nother world of tone that you don't get out of a traditional Les Paul. No matter how bright and clear and wonderfully dynamic these pickups are, when you have the option to have a good coil split sound, it means that you can take this formula, this particular wood combination and this genetic makeup of guitar, and push it in a different dynamic direction. And that's what I really like about the way Eggle does things, is that they honour where this guitar comes from, but they're also not afraid to push it in a totally different direction. Okay, so on to the last guitar of the three. This guitar hails from German company Nick Huber, who's no stranger to the channel by this point. We've done a few videos detailing their guitars in the past, including a more detailed, comprehensive overview of this exact model, the Orca 59. However, this is a slight variant. It's the same model, but it's a different guitar. There's something about the tone that I feel comes from the neck of this guitar that doesn't maybe apply to the other two. Now, this guitar is also really nice because it's got this semi-gloss neck, so it feels very comfortable, it feels worn in, but it also feels premium and new at the same time. It's kind of like the perfect blend between the gloss finish on this one and the more satinized finish on the Eggle. So it kind of sits in between the two. There's also been kind of particular levels of details that have been paid attention to in the design of this guitar to make it sit alongside the grand tones of those original 50s guitars. So the pickups that have been custom designed by Harry Housel, various other components that have gone into this guitar electronically, the tuners, the way it's constructed and so on, is all just that little bit of an extra step in terms of pushing it in a more vintage tonal direction. But this is where it can maybe be a little bit divisive for people, because this is a Huber and it sounds like one. It doesn't sound exactly the same as those vintage inspired tones that these two guitars have, maybe a little bit more specifically. This one I feel is a little bit broader sounding. You have a global coil split here just on the neck tone, which affects both pickups. And I have to say that I think this is one of the best electric guitar sounds that I've ever heard. For distorted tones and for clean tones, it's just a little bit more balanced, it's a little bit more dynamic. The balance that it has to the tone, the excitement that it has to certain notes because of that kind of enhanced top end, that flatlined mid-range, it's just a little bit different. And it's not going to work for everyone, but for those who do appreciate what it's about, this is going to be one of the best electric guitars that you've ever heard, and if you get the chance, it'll be one of the best that you've ever played as well. to conclude, I've tried to be a little bit more subjective in this one and try and get across a few more of my thoughts, because I think it's quite important. And I started this off by saying that we're going to explore that Les Paul sound. As I said, it means something totally different to everyone, and I've tried to just convey what I personally perceive it to be. There's no denying that this is the best vehicle to get that Les Paul sound. If that is what you crave and that's what you desire, then nothing else is going to do it as well as this. This is the real deal. But I do think the Eggle or the Huber, they're both fantastic instruments in their own right, and actually I think I've made the point that for certain things they are better. This guitar has a much woodier, more kind of classic quality to it that's either going to be your thing or it's not. It's darker, it's more aggressive. This one is brighter, crisper, maybe a little bit more clinical, and I mean that in the best sense of the word. I mean that in the most hi-fi, high-definition sense of the term. If you just want the best balance of all things, it's very hard not to give it to this. But there's always going to be a few little quirks that leap out at you from a particular instrument. It could be this, it could be this, or it could be this. And whenever you find that, it's undeniable, and it's going to move you in a way that means you will not unhear that Les Paul sound. And if you want to find out any more information about any of these three, or the magical Two-Rock TS1 amplifier that I'm playing through today, then click the link in the description below, head to peachguitars.com to do so. But before you do that, please make sure that you leave a like down below if you've enjoyed this. I also want to know in the comments which you think of these three guitars is your favourite. So anyway, that's it for today. Thanks a lot for watching, take care, and I'll see you next time.